1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
No audio here. Oh. Sorry, just a little plug unplugged. Hey, how you doing? Typical start to the Lynn Cullen show. I've only been doing this for 500 years. I mean, how do you expect me to know what? Oh, I have to plug that in? Okay. How you doing? So, guys, here's what I thought we'd do today. Because this is the last day. I got to tell you, this is the last day I'm going to see you for a week. We're taking the rest of this week off. First of all, nothing's happening. The whole world seems to sort of pause in between Christmas and New Year's. And then on Tuesday, which would be the day we would normally come back after the New Year holiday, I'm having surgery on my eye. And I don't think that's going to... I'm just going to take... So I won't be here on Tuesday, and I won't be here on Wednesday, but I hope to be here then the following day, maybe with an eye patch on, maybe looking a little odd, but... Pirate Day, or the thing is they don't let you put on any eye makeup, so I don't know. Not that it really matters. We'll hope to get back here on a week from tomorrow, which is January, 5th, I think. Okay? So this is our last shot at depressing the hell out of each other. And but you know what I thought we'd do today? I mean, I have some stuff I can talk about, but Carrie Fisher's death sort of seemed to be like the last straw for an awful lot of people. Celine said to me yesterday, well, she's in stable condition. That's probably a good sign. Yeah, but if it's stable because you're 1 inch from death's door and not quite going. So, I thought that since this year seems to be a year that has taken so many people from us, and so many too young, that it wouldn't be a bad idea to go through the year and to remember them. And anything you want to say, throw in, be fine with me. Okay? Now, I've got a list here. The Detroit Free Press actually put out lots of people put out these lists, but they're doing it chronologically. And the year started out, the big death that just knocked our socks off, because he had maintained total silence. Nobody even knew he was sick. So when we heard of the death of David Bowie on January 10th, it was something, remember? 69 years old. And my God, then to watch the video, Lazarus, of his last videos, astonishing that he was producing extraordinary music and poetry until the end. That was a life well lived and a death well done. 69 years old, which is a number I'm seeing a lot. Isn't that weird? 69. These days we say that's too young. I mean, there was a time when 69 would be considered a pretty good span. But it seems too young to me since I'm about 2 days away from becoming 69 myself. David Bowie was followed almost immediately by another death that stunned, and that is the actor, classically trained British actor, so good at anything he did, Alan Rickman. And Alan Rickman did he always play the villain? Well, actually not. I mean, in Harry Potter, he appeared to be the villain, but he an anti-hero type more than anything, Alan Rickman. My understanding of him is that people just said he was one of the kindest, nicest human beings you'd ever want to know. 69 years old. You know, some of these you just don't know. Some of these are just popular culture characters. Celine Dion lost her husband then in January. Dan Haggerty, do you remember that bear of a man? Because we got to know him from his, mostly from the life and times of Grizzly Adams, something I never watched. He was 74. And then, man, January 18th, Glenn Frey, founder of the Eagles, 67 years old. He and Don Henley, I mean, they wrote some great songs. So Glenn Frey is gone. And then, not surprisingly, but we loved him, 94 years old, character actor Abe Vigoda, who I believe was rumored to be dead a number of times. much to his I don't know what. How would you react to that? I suppose with some delight that you could say, obviously tain't true. Abe Vigoda, probably best known for his role on the TV show Barney Miller. Although, again, playing the detective. I realize when I look at these popular culture little thumbnail sketches, that I really am not somebody immersed in an awful lot of popular culture, especially television. Never really got into any sitcom, and very few dramatic series. I don't know why that is, but TV is not something that I gravitated to ever. So there's a lot of huge shows that like people immediately, like can bond people. And I've heard of them, of course. I could maybe even answer a trivia question or two just by virtue of the fact that I pay some attention, but I didn't watch. My son has caught me up with some, like Seinfeld. Never watched it, and he loves it, so I'm now seeing Seinfeld. But I really don't. Just one part of me. Gee whiz. It's like my whole life here. What do you mean? Then Paul Kantner, 74. We're still in January. Paul Kantner, Jefferson Airplane. Now that's some popular culture I really was into. Oh, man. Founding member of Jefferson Airplane. Okay, who we got? And then somebody else from Jefferson Airplane. What? Is the next dead one? A vocalist who left the band and was replaced by Gracie Slick. Well, who even knew? That's why I didn't know her, but how odd that she died one day after Cantner. So she would have been part of the original Jefferson Airplane. Signe Tolley Anderson, obviously a Scandinavian lady, 74 years old, same age as Cantner was. I had no idea there was somebody at Jefferson Airplane before Grace Slick. A guy named Linus Maurer died. Why in January? Why would you know him? Well, it's such an odd name, Linus. And in fact, he was a friend and a cartoonist of Charles Schulz. And Charles Schulz borrowed his friend's name for Charlie Brown's blanket carrying friend Linus in his Peanuts comic strip. So, strange way to be made famous, but Linus Maurer was 90 years old. And here's a name we don't know, and this is the last death recorded here in January. 92-year-old Georgia Davis Powers. And it says here, and this shows our priorities, that she was a giant in the fight for civil rights in Kentucky, and the first African-American woman elected to the state Senate. I mean, the fact that we don't know people whose lives helped push us forward, who made progress, not just a hope, but a reality. And so often those names, especially if you're black and female, would be lost to history because we're too dazzled by the popular culture celebrities, right? And actually, I'd even like to think that the people who are totally unheralded, who can't, if you were doing an obituary for them, you couldn't come up with, they were the first, they were the this, they were the that. But people who we all know in our own lives, who when they die, leave such a void because they were so important in our lives, right? Those are the biggies. The people who don't get celebrated. And I just want to point that out as we mourn the loss of people we don't know, but who we feel gave us things, gave of themselves. Well, that was the toll in January, according to the Detroit Free Press. And so we move on to February, where half of the Bob and Ray comedy team, radio comedy team, Bob and Ray, died. Bob Elliott, age 92. Celine, do you know Bob and Ray? Of course not. I mean, why would I even know Bob and Ray? Well, they sort of were still big, weren't they, in the 60s and stuff? These were two very funny, deadpan guys. Very funny guys. And if you look them up, go to YouTube, try to find a Bob and Ray little bit. They did radio. They are hysterical. And then back to the music world, February 3rd, Earth, Wind, and Fire founder Maurice White, 74 years old. Boy, the music world really took a hit this year. We're just in the beginning of February. Next is Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell. Mitchell was the sixth man on the moon. And he was part of the team that went up after Apollo 13, which was the successful failure that would have resulted in total disaster, but they managed to bring it down to Earth. And so Mitchell went up with the next group of astronauts. My memory, I think, of Edgar Mitchell, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, is that when I swear I just read this, when he'd walked on the moon, and he's hurtling back to Earth. And as he's hurtling back to Earth, somehow he is looking at this little teeny window that they had in the capsule. And he kept seeing the sun and the moon in very quick. I mean, there was this weird vision, and then he saw the Earth from such a distance that it looked like this. Well, that wouldn't have been when he's plummeting back. Whatever. He's one of the few astronauts that I'm aware of who, after having an experience that 99.99999% of humanity never had and will never have, namely standing on the moon's surface and looking back at Earth, at this blue planet. And it changed him spiritually in every way. I'm remembering that he came back, totally changed, and I mean, maybe went a little off the reservation. I don't know. Probably he sounded like he went real new agey. His marriage dissolved. I don't know. But look him up. I think, a lot of these guys, they have that extraordinary experience. We don't send poets up. It's been said many times. And so when you question astronauts often about, they come back after this unbelievable experience, after having had a perspective of the world that should change your life, I would think. And you would say to them, my God, what was it like? And you get things like, it was pretty neat, or it was, I was something. I was awesome. Yep. Mm-hmm. And you want so much more. My God, you want so much more than that. But I think Edgar Mitchell was one of the astronauts who was blown away, literally and spiritually and psychologically, by the experience he had. Next up, deaths in February, one that still reverberates, and not in a good way. Antonin Scalia. Antonin Scalia, stop and think about this. That seat of his on the Supreme Court has been empty for almost a year. Barack Obama had an entire year left in his presidency when the Republicans said, we ain't going to let you fill that seat. We aren't even going to be polite to the person that you nominate. We're not even going to have a hearing. Most of us aren't even going to meet with the guy. Antonin Scalia died February 13th. And then a global statesman, Boutros Ghali, whose name I always like to say. Boutros Ghali. He was the head of the UN. A woman who wrote 2 books, one of which will forever be considered a wondrous classic, and the movie made from it as well, and that is To Kill a Mockingbird. Harper Lee died at 89. Another literary giant, Umberto Eco, Italian author. You might have read, I did, it was good, The Name of the Rose was his. Here's a name you don't know. He died. Eric, they called him Winkle. Winkle Brown lived a long life, 97 years old. He was the first guy to land a jet on an aircraft carrier, which means he was brave and really good at flying. It is said he flew more kinds of aircraft than anyone in history. Back to the music world and its loss this year. Sonny James, country singer, turned a lot of pop songs into country hits, so started that crossover of country and pop. And then actor George Kennedy, 91. I think I remember him best from Cool Hand Luke, the Paul Newman film, where he's on the same chain gang. He was a big, tough guy. In fact, he won an Academy Award for that role. All right, that's February's toll. In March, another literary loss, Pat Conroy, 70 years old, author of The Great Santini, The Prince of Tides, other bestsellers, who had a hellish childhood, and he used that hellish childhood to create some real page-turners. Here's a name we don't know in all likelihood, but changed our lives. The inventor of modern email, Raymond Tomlinson, 74 years old. Followed by Nancy Reagan, 94. Needs no introduction. And then back to the music world and the loss of George Martin, the Beatles' suave producer, who was really responsible for taking this group and transforming them from a club act, essentially, into, well, legends and cultural revolutionaries. George Martin. Still in the music world, Frank Sinatra Jr., age 72. Here's a guy who had a very good voice, but didn't, if your father's Frank Sinatra, the odds are you're not going to sing better than him. And so to go into the family business is tough. And so, it's often tough to be the son of great men. And I think it's a rare son of a great man that also is able to become great themselves. And no matter how much they live their lives, they're seen as falling short, I guess. Frank Sinatra Jr. Remember the clown that was the mayor of Toronto who was doing crack all the time and all that guy? Remember him? He died this year. You might have missed it. Rob Ford. He was only 46 years old. My God. And here's a 45-year-old who died, who a lot of us won't know because a lot of us are white folks and we're older. This is Fife Dog, 45 years old, lyricist whose witty wordplay was a linchpin, it says here, of the groundbreaking hip-hop group A Tribe Called Quest. So good, says Celine. Yeah, gone. Here's another great comedian and actor gone, Gary Shandling. His show, so the Larry Sanders Show that he did, was brilliant. It was brilliant. Now, I said before I didn't get into shows, and I didn't even get into that. But the few times I saw it, I said, my God, this is brilliant. If you've never seen it, check that out, The Larry Sanders Show. As far as I know, he was the first who figured out that you could do this, what would you call the genre? He played at being a talk show, like a Tonight Show host. But it had a docudrama-ish quality about it. It was just brilliant. Gary Shandling, only 66 years old. And then the guy whose own life, growing up during the Depression in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, helped him create one of television's most beloved family shows, The Waltons, died. He was Earl Hamner, Jr., age 92. Good night. That's what they used to do, right, on The Waltons. Good night. I can't even think of them any names. Good night, so-and-so. Good night. Good night. Oh, I saw a few of those. Oh my, I forgot this one. 69. Patty Duke. Patty Duke. And she is a woman who did, I mean, what she did as a teenager in The Miracle Worker on Broadway as well as the movie, it's just brilliant. I mean, just brilliant with Anne Bancroft. Brilliant movie. And she had a lot of personal demons she battled, much like Carrie Fisher. Dead at 69. Okay, that was January, February, March. I better speed up or we're not going to make it. I'm going to skip some. In April. Now here's a guy, they say, what's this line? Eric Bowersfeld, age 93. He turned 3 words from a minor acting role in one of the most beloved lines of the Star Wars series. And here are the 3 words. It's a trap! What scene is that? It's a trap. Do you know? So this guy had 3 lines, and he ends up as getting a big shout out when he dies. Wow, that's pretty impressive. But see how Star Wars weaves throughout these obits, because he ain't going to be the only one. Star Wars. Return of the Jedi. He says it's a trap. And here's one who brought me low. Merle Haggard died in April. I mean, he was the epitome of country. And I just want to say, I forgive him his one song, Okie from Muskogee. And he never forgave himself for that song. I just want you to know. He didn't like what it turned into, and I I think if he could have jettisoned that from his oeuvre, he would have been a happier guy. Merle Haggard. Doris Roberts, I mentioned her, 90 years old, because everybody loved her on Everybody Loves Raymond, a show I never saw. China, woman wrestler, 46 years old. Wow, I missed that. Dwayne the Pearl Washington, basketball player from trying to remember, was he with the Knicks? Anyway, he's just 52. And then the one that I still can't believe. April 21st. Prince. 57. And it was then that we started freaking, because we said, oh my God, David Bowie. And then there's all those, slightly, lesser characters in between. And now Prince. My gosh. Let me see. I'm trying to get through some that I'm not going to get into. Believe me, I'm going through a lot. Wow. Here's a kid, 18, Donovan Hill, California teen whose paralyzing football injury led to increased safety protections for young players. Dead at 18. Morley Safer, who I got to tell you did some bang up reportage from Vietnam. When we hear about Vietnam being the first American war that Americans watched while eating dinner, Morley Safer was responsible for bringing much of that into our kitchens and living rooms, and then of course went on to finish out his career on 60 Minutes. The guy who played the straight man to Mr. Ed, Alan Young, he was 96. He was on A Horse is a Horse, of course, I'm not talking about horse, of course, unless the horse... I did watch that a little bit. Amazing. We're into June, and this is the one that affected me the most. This is the one. More than Prince, I couldn't take it anymore at this point. Because I've loved this man forever, and will forever. June 3rd. Muhammad Ali. God. How could he be dead? '74. My God. Gordie Howe. For you hockey guys, 88 years old. Considered to be one of the best. Joe Cox, you might not remember the name. J-O, female, Joe Cox. Just 41 years old. A wife, a mother, a member of the British Parliament, who was brutally attacked and killed by some friggin' right-wing lunatic because she opposed leaving the EU. This was prior to the Brexit vote in the UK. And then a 27-year-old man, Anton Yelchin, who was just starting his acting career, but he was known to those of you who got into the new Star Trek films playing Chekhov. What a ridiculous way to end his life. He was killed by his own car in his own driveway. In July, Elie Wiesel, 87 years old, probably the best-known Holocaust survivor. And he became, I guess, the world's foremost witness to that horror. My son and I, my family and I, had the honor of dinner with him and being with him. He came in to speak in Green Bay at a lecture series that my father endowed. And so we got to talk to him and meet him, and I was so blown away by him. It was one of the largest, it has to be probably these lectures are usually held in an auditorium. They were held, this one was held in the gymnasium of a local college because it was so hugely welcomed. I mean, people like Elie Wiesel don't regularly go to places like Green Bay, Wisconsin. And the people, man, they came out. Wow, did they come out to see him. Great man. Elie Wiesel. Michael Cimino, is that how it was pronounced? The director who did a great film, a great film, The Deer Hunter. And did one of what is considered the worst films in the universe, Heaven's Gate. Has anyone ever watched Heaven's Gate? I never watched it. Everybody just says it's the worst. I mean, but I don't know. Is it? Back to basketball. Nate Thurmond played with Wilt Chamberlain. Alan Vega. Now here's a punk pioneer who formed the duo Suicide, widely regarded as the forerunner of punk and electronic music. And usually these guys die young, but he made it to 78. Followed by Marnie Nixon, whose voice is the part of the soundtrack of some of the great musicals, Hollywood musicals. Her voice was the voice, not the voice of the actress that you saw. Her voice was the voice of Natalie Wood in West Side Story and of, who is that, Deborah Carr in The King and I, and Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady. And then the jerk who co-authored the Left Behind series made gazillions about how the rapture was going to happen. He made so much money on that. Too bad he didn't live to be raptured. The Reverend Tim LaHaye. And we get to August. Pete Fountain, Dixieland, clarinetist. Dixieland, one of the few genres I don't like, music genres. I just don't like. But he was a hell of a clarinetist, I know. And then back to Star Wars, Kenny Baker, 81. He played R2-D2. Yeah, there was somebody in there. Kenny Baker. And then another great character actor with a great name, Five-ish Finkel. Five-ish Finkel, who looked like Five-ish Finkel. Dead at 93. He was an Emmy Award-winning actor, stage, screen. You name it, he was in it. I think people got to know him best from the television series Boston Public and Picket Fences, but just a classic. Jews would call his face a Yiddish apunim, a Jewish face. It's a Fivish Finkel, which, by the way, is a Yiddish name, too. What else we got here? Now, here's somebody who probably, of all the people we've named, this guy might be the one who should be most celebrated, and yet we don't know his name, okay? Donald Henderson. Donald Henderson. It's amazing how we don't value more people like this, because he was a scientist, an epidemiologist, and it was his leadership, tenacious as hell this guy was, that led to the eradication of one of the biggest killers of human beings ever, smallpox. He slew smallpox. So, I mean, there's no way of knowing how many lives Donald Henderson saved, but ultimately it would be probably millions of lives. Donald Henderson, that's a name we should know, but we don't, because our culture doesn't make heroes out of people like him. We like celebrity, and it's a rare scientist who gains celebrity. Oh, here's another that upset me. Gene Wilder. Wonderful character. I think his greatest role, who the hell knows? I loved him in The Producers, loved him in Young Frankenstein. Gene Wilder. And we're in September. And believe me, I'm skipping over a ton of people. Here's another death that I actually did not mourn. I will mark it again. Phyllis Schlafly, age 92, a woman who absolutely single-handedly defeated the Equal Rights Amendment, I would say, and founded the most extraordinary white right-wing group called Eagle Forum. Spent her life trying to keep women in their place, while she, of course, hobnobbed with all the men who were changing things. Edward Albee, Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? A Delicate Balance. He was 88 years old. Canadian novelist, same day, W.P. Kinsella, who we know mostly for the book that became the film Field of Dreams. And then a guy we like to think of as our own, Arnie Palmer, who probably did more than anyone to make golf a sport that probably drew huge television audiences. And I don't know, Arnold Palmer, hell of a guy, charismatic, kind, regular guy. Former Israeli president and prime minister, a good man, Shimon Peres, aged 93. He also won a Nobel Prize, Peace Prize. And into October, Yeah, we don't care. The king of Cambodia, the king of Thailand, the world's longest reigning monarch. He was revered. Dennis Byrd, former NFL defensive lineman, dead in a car accident. And then Tom Hayden, Vietnam anti-war activist, founder of Students for Democratic Society, SDS, became a California politician and was probably best known for being part of the Chicago 7 and marrying Jane Fonda. Followed by Bobby V, 60s singer. He had that funny thing where he was just a kid and he was asked, because of the plane crash that took out Buddy Holly and Richie Valens, he filled in for them at the concert they never made, and that was the beginning of his career. Bobby V. Into November, Janet Reno. Remarkable woman, really. 6 foot, 1 inch, 6'2" or something. She served, she was the first woman to be the Attorney General. And man, did she have a stormy 8-year tenure. That took in the Branch Davidians, the seizure of Elian Gonzalez, all that stuff, not to mention Bill Clinton and his judicial difficulties. And then another death that brought me low because I had the hots for him and just loved him and still do, Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen, whose songs I could listen to forever. Followed by Robert Vaughn. This is when I did watch The Man from Uncle, co-anchor of the NewsHour on PBS. Moderated a number of presidential or vice presidential debates, and just a wonderful human being from all indicators. Sharon Jones, 60 years old. She was the one who was told she was, too old, too black, too fat, too all these things to ever make it, and she just kept on plugging away and became a star when she was old, or middle age, and then wasn't able to enjoy it long enough because she's dead at 60. Florence Henderson, another television mom who's loved for the Brady Bunch, and then we come to another colossus, Fidel Castro. He outlived how many presidents? Something like 11? Well, he outlived their presidencies. Grant Tinker, who was responsible for some really great television in the 70s, I believe. Hill Street Blues was one of them. He was married to, I believe, Mary Tyler Moore. And then December, ladies and gentlemen, we lost John Glenn. Again, a good man. A really good man, by all accounts. And I need say no more. Alan Thicke, these are all still fresh in our memory, age 69. Craig Sager, the NBA sideline reporter with appalling taste in clothes. Henry Heimlich, who again saved lives. We know his name. Now, why is that? We know his name because his thing is something we all can do. So he's made a lot of regular, ordinary people lifesavers as well with the Heimlich maneuver. And then, of course, Zsa Zsa and George Michael and Carrie Fisher. Now, we've got how many days left? We got 3 days left. Who the hell knows who else is going to bite the dust? Jeez. Carrie Fisher. She's somebody who could have been my friend, I know. God, smart, funny, self-deprecating, truth-telling, self-deprecating. Did I say that? Just loved her. I loved her. I don't know that she was a great actress, but she was okay. She was okay.
Do you mind if I read something?
Yeah.
As per Carrie Fisher's request.
Do it.
Not of me personally, but this is her remembering a conversation she had with George Lucas. Remember the white dress I wore all through that film? George came up to me on the first day of filming, took one look at the dress and said, "You can't wear a bra under that dress." "Okay, I'll bite," I said. "Why?" And he said, "Because there's no underwear in space." He said it with such conviction, like he had been to space and looked around and he didn't see any bras or panties anywhere. He explained, you go into space and you become weightless. Then your body expands, but your bra doesn't, so you get strangled by your own underwear. I think that this would make a fantastic obituary. I tell my younger friends no matter how I go, I want it reported that I drowned in moonlight, strangled by my own bra.
Oh, God, she's so cute. Thank you. I could eat her up. Eat her up. Harrison Ford, who, not known for being exactly articulate or anything, I do think he said, he got the right adjectives. He said one of a kind, brilliant, original, funny, emotionally fearless. She lived her life bravely. Yeah, she lived it all out. I like her honesty more than anything. Her honesty. And I mean, that was apparent, and I wish I'd seen her one-woman show, Wishful Drinking. She has a line in there that I totally relate to. I just think it's brilliant. She says, I don't have a problem with drugs and alcohol so much as I have a problem with sobriety. Well, maybe you got to be somebody with a problem with drugs and alcohol to laugh at that. Yeah, it's sobriety. I can't. That's where my problem lies. Says, I'm a product of Hollywood inbreeding. When two celebrities mate, something like me is the result. Well, they should mate more often then, lady, because you were wonderful. So I feel like I should revisit some of the books she wrote because she is funny and her life was, good God, a real adventure. At times a real slog. I mean, my God, so you're born to, it's not like Eddie Fisher is like a huge name anymore, but he sure was then. And Debbie Reynolds, and I feel so sorry for her that she has to bury her daughter. That is so unbearable and brutal. So her dad leaves her mother and runs off with Elizabeth Taylor. That was such huge news back then. I actually have a memory of being in Palm Springs in the 50s, and we were in a dress shop, and Eddie Fisher was in there. And it was right after he'd left Debbie, so I remember my mom just saying, well, my God, he's buying something for Liz Taylor. That was huge. Meanwhile, Liz Taylor left him within, like, what? She was married to him for 2 seconds. And then Richard Burton came along. Yeah, Eddie next to Richard Burton, I'm sorry. You're toast. And then Carrie marries Paul Simon and Garfunkel. That marriage didn't even last a year. Too bad. She, in her one-woman show, talked about the time the father of her daughter, who she never married, the father of her daughter left her for a man, and the next day she woke up next to the dead body of a platonic friend who had overdosed in her bed. Good God. Let me see if I can find any other good stuff for you. She partied with the Rolling Stones during the making of The Empire Strikes Back. She hosted Saturday Night Live and had a relationship with Dan Aykroyd, which I didn't know. And she did appear in the Blues Brothers. That was right around that time. And what else? She was on coke while making The Empire Strikes Back. In 1985, after filming a role in Woody Allen's Hannah and Her Sisters, she had a nearly fatal drug overdose. But all of that stuff she took and made into entertainment, made into books and movies. Oh, this is Mary. Thank you for reminding me. I must have gone right by her, or she wasn't on their list, which would be outrageous. But yes, this year also saw the loss of Pat Summitt, who was the winningest coach? Yeah, you tell me this. She had the most wins of any NCAA basketball coach. So move over all the guys, Coach K and all the others who are so famous, because this woman outcoached them all. She was only 64 years old. The greatest basketball coach of all time, Pat Summitt. She died of dementia. Can you imagine? She was it Alzheimer's? She would have had to get it when she was in her, 50s. That's pretty amazing. And cruel. And truly cruel. Well, so, anyway, there it is. And I don't know if you saw what Cinnabon did after they heard Carrie Fisher died. You can't make this stuff up. They put out a tweet with Carrie Fisher in profile, and instead of one of those Princess Leia stupid hair things, they replaced it with a Cinnabon. So, and the headline was, R.I.P. Carrie Fisher, you'll always have the best buns in the galaxy. They put their own product on her head, on her hair, a hairdo, by the way, that she hated, understandably. And then they'd say, you have the best buns in the galaxy? Well, I mean, that was followed up. That was a tweet, okay? That was followed up. I don't know how long it lasted, but because the outcry was immediate and on so many levels, and so they very quickly tweeted. Wait a minute. Yeah, very quickly tweeted this. Our deleted tweet was genuinely meant as a tribute, but we shouldn't have posted it. We are truly sorry. And I mean, what kind? I mean, somebody put on Slate 24 questions that I immediately thought of when I learned of this tweet. Number one, did anyone look at the tweet and say, maybe not? I mean, it is amazing. This stuff just goes out. Somebody thinks, oh, this is brilliant. She had always called that hairdo a hair prison. It is hideous. I mean, it's just flat out hideous, unflattering, and whatever. So there you have it. Another corporate effort to exploit the death of a loved celebrity goes awry. Okay, so I think that's it, guys. I hope that didn't depress you, but I mean, we keep saying that we've been through such a horrific year. And I left out a gazillion there, but because they weren't so much celebrities, so I probably shouldn't have done that, but I wanted to. And as I said earlier, the deaths that really affect us are the deaths of people who will never get on any of these newspapers, and they're never going to be noted by a bunch of people. It's just going to leave an unbearable and irreplaceable void in your life, my life. It's the people who are special to us. Those are the deaths that really, really make it tough. So that's all I have for the year. So the next time I see you, God, it'll be 2017, and I'll probably look weird, and but I'm looking forward to this. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm steeling myself for the new year. Okay, we'll go through it together, because this one's been a bitch. We got to get better at this. My mother told me that, and she's right. We got to get better at this. People have lived through a lot worse. God knows people are living through a lot worse right now all over the world. So, yeah, let's suck it up. Let's keep things in perspective and resist. Happy New Year.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.